Councilmember Carty?
Here.
Councilmember Shad?
Here.
Councilmember Stovall?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lyles?
Here.
Mayor Gross?
Here. And we do have a quorum. This brings us to our moment of silence, and as always, would ask you to stand while we have our moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. During the moment of silence, if you choose to pray, and I certainly hope you will, I plan to, I would ask you to keep this country and this community and this meeting tonight in your thoughts and prayers. And Mr. Vice Mayor, who's going to do the pledge tonight?
Our wonderful Chief of Police, Tom Hall.
All right.
I'd be honored, thank you.
All right, if you'll stand for that.
Please face flag. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you, folks. Again, thank you for being here with us this evening. Next item is the upcoming community events. Councilmember McCarty, you have that?
I do. At the farmer's market stage, Wingwood Market, we'll have 7 Mile Forward on September the 8th. I know they're always looking for volunteers, so if you're interested in that, get in touch with the chamber office. Party in the Park, Domino will be there this Friday, August 24th. The Cactus Flower is playing at Star City Playhouse, which I understand is very good. Debbie did a very nice article on that. It was very nice. And also, unfortunately, I was unable to make it to the Creek Fest, but I think that Mr. Lyles got to make it, and he said that it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Good turnout.
It was.
Great.
Yeah, the rain stopped just in time.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, good turnout.
All right. Any other events to announce this evening? Yes, ma'am.
On Sunday afternoon, this Sunday, there's a festival at the farmer's market called Carmen's Cause. A lady who died of blood clot suddenly, and it's like to raise awareness and to raise funds for National Blood Clot Alliance, something like that. But it's most of the afternoon on Sunday
This Sunday coming up.
at the farmer's market.
Thank you for that, Debbie. Any others?
I also
Yes, sir.
just wanted to remind council that the Lee Avenue Block Party is Saturday evening. I believe it starts at 5.
Yeah. And then also in the Historic Museum, doing a yard sale.
Certainly.
That's Saturday.
That's Saturday.
Saturday.
Wow, we're going to have a busy weekend, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any others? Yeah, all of our party animals can really have a good time this weekend, sounds like. All right. With that, we will move on to the next item, which is request to postpone, add, or change the order of the agenda. I understand we have one change.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to add an item to G, and that would be G3, and it will be a proclamation.
All right. Are there any objections from council? Do we need to vote on that? No. If there are no objections, we'll make that addition to the agenda. Chief, you have any words of wisdom for us this evening?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, recently I saw the video that was put together by RVTV about all the great things that are going on in the town of Benton, and it's just an amazing thing. And keeping that in mind, I thought of a quote by Thomas Edison, and he said, "Opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work." And I thought that was a great quote. But when I looked at that and I think about all the incredible things that are going on in Benton and the wonderful job our economic development team's doing along with our private sector partners, and the fact that they are willing to put in the work and see the opportunity that is there in this town. And just when I watched that, it kind of brought that to mind. And so I thought it was a fitting quote tonight from Mr. Edison and the incredible people on our staff that do our economic development.
Thank you.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much. And you're right, that works well this evening. Thank you, sir, for that. Okay, next item is the consent agenda, and tonight it contains the minutes of the regular meeting of July 17th, 2018. Are there any changes or additions? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Scheid and a second by Councilmember Stovall for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, moving right along. And we have arrived at my favorite section, the awards presentations and introductions and all that good stuff. That's usually a lot of fun. And we will start this evening with Liz Belcher, who has a presentation concerning the Greenway. Good to see you, Liz.
Thank you, Mayor Gross. It is always a great opportunity and fun to be in Benton and to see all our friends and especially our longtime Greenway friends, some of who have been serving longer than I have, such as Mayor Gross. So tonight, So tonight I'm here to ask you to consider adopting the 2018 Roanoke Valley Greenway Plan after a public hearing in September. And when the Greenway Commission was set up, it was not set up as an authority. It was set up as a cooperative commission, regional commission, and really we are the only one in the state. And so it's important as we update the plans every 10 years that the localities know about those plans and have the opportunity to adopt those plans and sort of renew their commitment to the program. The town did adopt a plan that was developed in 1995 and the update in 2007. Being in the comprehensive plan is absolutely critical to getting grants. And as you know, you've had grants to build the sections of Glade Creek Greenway, and I just saw a new grant application today, and they all ask, are you in the comprehensive plan? So it's really important that the town adopt it as an element. So tonight I wanted to tell you what we've done to get to the plan. The plan was adopted by the Greenway Commission on June 27th, and now we're taking it to each of the localities, Benton being first, and for their consideration and adoption as an element of their comprehensive plans. So I wanted to let you know some of the things we did to develop the plan and what's in the plan so that you would understand it. It is a conceptual Greenway plan. The lines are like generic sort of lines, you know, that follow the creek. It does not tell you exactly where it's going to be. Any project, when we get to implementing it, would go through the stages of having a feasibility study and getting funding and doing engineering and right-of-way before you actually build it. So this is really a conceptual Greenway plan for the whole region. And it is the first time we've included Botetourt County. Now, if you look at the map, Botetourt County is not all on the map because Botetourt County doesn't fit on the map. It's so big. Really, Botetourt is as big as the rest of the region together. But we have included Botetourt for the first time, and so that has been one of our challenges as we develop this plan. So just to give you an idea, we've been working on this for almost 2 years. I know that seems like a long time. We did not have a consultant. We've been doing it with staff, and after about the first 6 or 8 months, we realized that there was a whole component we'd never done before, which is what we're calling the connectivity component. So we had a steering committee with staff from the localities. Anita was on that, and your various Greenway Commission members, Pete Peters and Bud LaRoche and Janet and Matt here and Rob Lyons have all been involved in this process. So we had did all the inventory stuff and update information in the fall, and then in the spring we had 6 public meetings, one of which was at the War Memorial. And then we took all those comments and we went, oh, well, we got a little more work to do. So the work was really that we had so much input saying connectivity. We want to be able to get there without getting in a car. So how can you connect my neighborhood to the greenways, and how are you going to connect the greenways to each other? So we spent really almost a year making maps with staff and addressing that issue. And then we had another public meeting in April, and then we adopted the plan in June after some revisions. We had a couple of other things going on at the same time that gave us input in addition to our own meetings. We had a Tinker Creek Greenway feasibility study going on that involved a lot of field work and looking at how to get Tinker to Botetourt. And then Botetourt had Daleville meetings as they're planning that greenway, and Roanoke County had the 419 and the Oak Grove meeting and Holland's meetings, and the city was working on their park plan. So a lot of things going on at the same time. What the public said to us was, finish Roanoke River Greenway. Okay, we want to see that going all the way across the valley, and then the connectivity issue of connect the greenways to each other, connect my neighborhood, and then also go to Montgomery County and connect other places, or Smith Mountain Lake. Or Gay Lakes, right. So, and particularly go to Carvin's Cove. We had a lot of input to go to Carvin's Cove. So that's just kind of some of the themes we heard. We don't solve all the problems in this plan, but we try to address the problems that we heard from the community, and then move on for the Greenway Commission to work with localities to look at those and, you know, in the near future. So to give you an example, there are those other users out there on the Greenway. Okay, if I'm on Roanoke River Greenway and I'm walking, those bicycles are going too fast. Okay, but if I'm a bicyclist, those people with dogs on leashes are getting in my way. They're pulling the dog out and tripping me up. If I'm a lady with a kid in a stroller, I don't like this big dog sniffing my kid. You know, if I'm, you know, everybody has a complaint about somebody else, right? So what I say to them is, all you need to know, you learned in kindergarten. Don't hit and share, okay? So if you go back to the book of all I need to know I learned in kindergarten, just recite that book and you've got. So sharing is one of the things that we try to advocate through our etiquette program. We heard a lot about signage, mile markers, and particularly about digital communication. You know, phones, everybody has phones. We heard some more comments than usual about environmental protection, riparian species, and the water quality, because now we have the Roanoke River Blueway and people are thinking more about the water. They're noticing when it's muddy. And then we heard a lot about maintenance. Some of our facilities are now 20 years old, and especially after rain, when is it gonna open and when are you gonna get the mud off? Or when are you gonna smooth it out? And then a new issue to me, truthfully, is electronic skateboards and e-bikes, okay? How many people have been on an e-bike? Have you ever seen? Oh, okay. We've got Pete's been on an e-bike. And then, of course, the number one thing the public wants is year-round bathrooms. So that's always been a big issue. In terms of Tinker Creek Greenway, there was a lot of support for Tinker Creek. Yes, it is the logical next north-south route to get to Botetourt, but don't put it in my backyard. Okay, Tinker gets smaller the farther upstream you go, and so as you get up in Roanoke County, out in the Hollands area, people are enthusiastic about the Greenway but did not want it between their house and the creek. So because of that, we did a lot of analysis of all the different routes on the Tinker. So in the plan, having analyzed all this input, we start with the vision. And the vision is really sort of the same as what we've had of Roanoke River Greenway as the east-west corridor through the valley, and then north-south routes that go to the public lands around us. So Tinker Creek going out to Botetourt, and Mason's Creek and Hanging Rock, connecting to Carbons Cove, National Forest, Blue Ridge Parkway, and all the public lands around us. We did a lot of update stuff. This chart kind of shows you what's happened in the last 20 years. We've gone from 1.9 miles of paved surface Greenway Trail to 35 miles, basically. We've gone from 60 miles of trail to 380. We cheated a little bit, okay? We took in Botetourt County. They already had a lot of trails, right? So we got to add those in, which helped our mileage go up, but certainly now we're one of the regions with the most mileage. This is an example of, for Benton, of course, of the kind of information that we have in the plan in chapter 4, which is a discussion of every greenway and where it is and what steps are next and how it's been funded. This is what we call a brain dump. Okay, it's trying to put all the information together so that the next person coming along can figure out what's happened if Anita's not still here. But we know she will be. Okay, so in the plan, there are now 44 routes. In the last plan, there were 35 off-road routes. Now there are 44. That includes Botetourt County. It also includes National Forest trails, and it also includes the Hitchy Trail, which is a project we're working on to connect from Hanging Rock to Carbons Cove. This is you have in front of you a big version of what I call the blue and pink map. The blue and pink map are the regional connections. And what we tried to do was take the regional plans, the bikeway plan, the pedestrian plan, the transit plan, and look at each locality of where do we need some on-road facilities for people to get from their neighborhoods to the greenways. So this might be sidewalks, it might be bike lanes, or it might be, share the road, but it's an opportunity to address that connectivity of how do I safely get from my house to the greenway. Benton actually has probably more of these than other places because staff really looked carefully at places where we needed additional infrastructure. So our goals and objectives are really organized the same way that they were in 2007, looking at construction and funding and outreach and education, how we're organized in greenway management, but we have some new objectives and strategies. Okay, so this is just an example, it's not all of them, but coordinate with long distance trails. You've all heard about the proposal from Montgomery County that we link everything to the New River Trail, and I will tell you, we've worked on that off and on for 15 years, okay? It's not new. This is something we've talked to the state about for years and years, but it has gotten more attention because Montgomery County is now pushing it, and a huge amount of it's in Montgomery County, right? So we would certainly like to see that happen. Funding, protection of corridors through zoning, greenway ambassadors who are volunteers who help on the greenways, and then things like improving the website. The developing an assessment of the economic impact, we recently got one from North Carolina. And one trail that goes through the Research Triangle, which is the East Coast Greenway, has a benefit of $90 million a year. Okay, and we're going, gosh, what are we worth? We don't really know. We haven't spent the money, but that's something that we're thinking about addressing. We did not have the big tourism push 10 years ago that we have now. So that's, just one more thing for us to think about doing. People suggested things like solar lights, renewable energy, places to charge their wheelchairs. That was a request we had several times. And people were really interested in the social media outreach stuff, which, I'm sorry, that's not my bailiwick, but we got the marketing committee's gonna address that. And then, again, etiquette, people being nice and sharing the trails. One of the issues that has come up many times, and I know it's come up in Benton, is the issue of maintenance. And 20 years ago, both the city and the county adopted a policy when they adopted the Greenway plan, saying that as we build these, we will give the appropriate department maintenance money. We said it, we just haven't done it. Okay, so what we're seeing now is that, well, I take that back. The city of Roanoke put $200,000 a year into their CIP for 15 years, but it mostly went to construction. So what we're seeing now is that things that are 20 years old need a little more attention. Just to give you an idea of what the other localities are doing in terms of maintenance, the city of Salem is maintained, theirs are maintained by the streets department, and their budget for this year is $39,500. They have about 5.5 miles of greenway that they're maintaining, and so that gives you a rough idea of what they're doing. The city of Roanoke is doing more and more with less and less. Okay, they're expanding their system. They have fewer people now than they did 3 years ago. And so they really are absorbing the maintenance in their parks department by reassigning people to do different jobs. So they used to have a urban forestry team that did a lot of tree maintenance. Now they have volunteers do that, and those people go to the Greenway. In Roanoke County, they're basically absorbing theirs. They do have $125,000 in their capital maintenance fund for next year, $30,000 of which is for Wolf Creek culvert repair. They also are doing a couple of stream bank restorations, and truthfully, flooding from intense rains is one of our biggest sources of damage to the greenways. Has anybody noticed it's rained this year? I mean, it has rained, hasn't it? And it has rained hard. But to give you an idea of how this compares to other places, in Raleigh, they get $20,000 per mile for maintenance. So their maintenance budget is in the millions. So we've done really well at getting money for greenway construction, but probably we're going to have to work a little harder on greenway maintenance money. So I encourage you to look at your little map, your big map. That's the Greenway Network map. And I wanted to just let you know what's in it in terms of routes that are in the plan. So the red one that goes right through the middle is Roanoke River Greenway going east-west through the localities. It is still our Category 1 priority and the one we're focusing hardest on getting finished. The purple things are the Category 2, and those are hard surface paved greenways that go north and south to the public lands around us. So for Benton, that's Glade Creek and Tinker Creek Greenway. As I mentioned, we're already working on Tinker Creek as our next logical follow-up on Roanoke River. Okay, then we have the blue things. The blue things are projects that are underway. They're either funded, or they're in planning and design, or we have some right away, or we're working on them. So in Benton, those would be Wolf Creek, Gladetown Trail, and the Blue Ridge Parkway trails are not exactly in Benton, but they tie to the Benton Business Center and to Wolf Creek, so they're sort of a loop for people who live in Benton. Category 4 are black, and we are not working on them because they're conceptual. We've thought about them for years, but at this point we don't have money or land to be working on. And then the green ones are the greenways that are open, so those are the existing greenways and trails. We also have in this plan the blueways. So I'm sure you've heard about the Roanoke River Blueway. You have a launch point on Tinker Creek across from Public Works, which we certainly appreciate. And we've added some other blueways, Botetourt County, James River. We've had added a few others that are in Botetourt County that have potential for floating. So those have been added as potential greenway development. So that gives you an idea of what's in the plan, and I would be happy to answer any questions about the plan. We hope to come back to you on September the 4th for public hearing and for you to consider adopting the plan. And we are also moving to all the other jurisdictions in September, scheduled in September to consider. We do hope to have a ribbon cutting coming up soon in Salem. They are supposed to finish the Eddy Bridge last week of September. And so we hope that shortly after that we'll have a ribbon cutting, and the city also has finished the piece to the material report. And as soon as they get through all their inspections, they hope to get that open. So I'd be glad to answer questions if you have any.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
thank you very much. That's a good presentation. I'm just running some numbers right here, so I guess I didn't get mileage for the other jurisdictions. So I'm gonna take Salem's number that you gave, 5.5 miles, $39,500. Of course, that comes up to about $7,000 a mile. Is that the average number? Which, I mean, and then you gave, Arlington, I guess? Raleigh, thank you, for $20,000 a mile. So do you know what the Valley's average is?
Well, I don't, because they're not keeping track of it. They're absorbing it in their budget. So what the city of Roanoke says is that about 10% of their time, of their parks maintenance is on greenway stuff, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know what their total parks.
10% of their Parks and Rec budget is on greenways?
Parks maintenance, but
Parks maintenance budget.
Is on greenways.
Okay.
And so, you know, I take that up there, we're not, if we don't track it, we don't know. Right?
Right.
So they're not budgeting it that way. So that makes it a little harder to know.
So they're doing it as a as-needed basis, I guess what it needs?
Well, in Roanoke County, what they do is they mow once a week, and if the guy on the mower notices a problem, he's supposed to report it. If we have a storm event, they go look at things after the storm event. So they have somebody on the ground regularly, but they don't necessarily have the piece of equipment they might need. I mean, if they're on a mower, they're not gonna smooth out the trail if it washed. The city has people on the greenways more frequently than that because they have somebody who picks up trash more frequently because their use is higher. So it varies by locality.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
yes. Thank you, Liz. You always do the best PowerPoints, and I appreciate that. You don't load them up with a ton of stuff, and so they're understandable. I want to thank you for the work that went into putting together this plan. I know it was a 2-year process, and I know you don't have any staff. So I know that the Greenway Commission helped a lot, and the Regional Commission helped a lot, and I appreciate all of that, and I appreciate the citizens who came out to the public meetings and gave us their input. If I recall looking at the drafts of the plan, there was quite a bit of input. So I appreciate all of that effort that went into this draft plan. Maintenance is a real concern of mine, and I appreciate you addressing it directly in your presentation. I do think that we are going to have to address maintenance head-on at some point, and I don't know when that point will be. I think we have kind of buried our heads in the sand a little bit about it, and part of that is goes back to what Mr. Stovall's comment was. I mean, if we just kind of hide it in the Parks and Rec budget and absorb it into the Parks and Rec budget, then it is not very clear what we are spending or not spending on maintenance. And I know, and I feel the same way, everybody wants to build more and more greenways and new greenways, but it is, you know, go back to the policy statement that you had up there from both the city and the county. We really do need to be allocating maintenance money for these new greenways. It's, you know, it's just not pie in the sky anymore. It's, you know, the rubber has hit the road, And a really good example is Wolf Creek Greenway, and I really appreciate, you know, that's a greenway that's, you know, a small section of it is in the town, and then the larger amount of mileage of it is in the county, and I am very familiar with that greenway, out there several times a week, if not more now. I appreciate what the town has done on our portion of the Wolf Creek Greenway just recently. We've, you know, I think put some money and effort into improving it. Frankly, we have probably the easiest part of the Wolf Creek Greenway to take care of. It's the flattest area of the Greenway, and it's in really good shape now. But I have to tell you, the rest of Wolf Creek is in really bad shape. And I know people do go out there and mow every week, and they may make a note of problems on the Greenway, but they don't do anything about them until they are pestered to death by certain people. So, you know, they have just recently done some improvements on the far end, and I know they've got some money set aside for that culvert. That culvert is just really borderline dangerous at this point, and it will be probably another year before improvements are made. So I do, you know, I say all this just to kind of bring it front and center in everybody's mind. We are as guilty as any locality. I mean, we want to see Glade Creek, you know, all those new sections done of Glade Creek, but when we are approving those grants and putting in for those grants, I think it would behoove us to think in terms of how we're going to maintain those greenways, how we're going to maintain what we have in addition to the new ones. Just a couple of other comments, if I can, Mr. Mayor. I'd like you, Liz, to expand a little bit, because I think the Hinchy Trail is so exciting, and you have worked so hard on the Hinchy Trail for so many years. And I know this because you were working on it when I was with Roanoke County Parks and Recreation working on greenways. So, and I think it would help us all if you would just expand a little bit on how exciting that is and what it means to the overall greenway system. The other thing I want you to just mention a little bit, because it affects Vinton, as we get in more and more to paved greenways like Glade Creek, the whole issue of snow removal, because I know that Roanoke City does do some amount of snow removal on their greenways, and it's an area that they get a lot of complaints about if they don't do it. And so
But they also get complaints if they do it.
Oh.
Because their cross-country skiers complain, they call me immediately. I went out this morning at 10 o'clock and I had a great time. I went back at 1 o'clock and they plowed. And they're just furious.
So that's all good information for us then, I think, in terms of how we're going to address that in our greenway.
Just designate it for cross-country skiers.
Okay. That's the cheapest way, right? So we wouldn't have to clear it.
No good deed, President Hunt.
Right.
Yeah, I like that as like the parkway.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's a good place to go.
It's closed except for snow activities.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, so then if you would just expand a little bit on Hinchy for everyone, I think that would be helpful.
So, on your map, the Hinchy Trail is number 24, and the Hinchy Trail is an opportunity to connect the Hanging Rock Battlefield Trail to Carvin's Cove. This is an existing 2-mile CCC road that has been in private ownership forever, okay, until recently. So, as Shad mentioned, we've worked with the landowner for many years. I actually sneaked it into the Carvin's Cove Trail Plan in 2009, and that the city told me, no, you can't put it in there, it's not in Carvin's Cove, and so we called it something different, Greenway Connection, and put it in there anyway, because it is the most logical way to connect the cove to the urban area to Salem. You know, it'll be a half a mile, no, a quarter of a mile from I-81, exit 141 at I-81. So the people who had owned it died. The younger generation, who's about my age, began to realize after a while that they did not want to maintain it, the road. So they came to us and said, if we gave you the road, would you maintain it to be a greenway? And the 2-year evolution of that is that the Pathfinders for Greenways, which is our nonprofit, has at this point bought a 50% share in 235 acres of land. And then when the partner, original owner, is ready in next winter to capitalize on tax credits, we will donate that to Roanoke County. So we have an MOU with the other owner, and we have paid for it with cash, and then the Pathfinders is recouping that cash through some fundraising. And we've gotten 2 grants to help with that, and recently got a $75,000 donation to help pay for it. So it's 235 acres, it's a lot of land, and it's all woodland with several miles of creek on it. So it's a tremendous opportunity to connect Carbons Cove. I myself am not going to be the first mountain bike up the road, okay? We've had crews out. He might be. We've had crews out there. I know a lot of people have ridden down the road illegally, but I don't know anybody who's ridden up it yet. But it is an old CCC road. It's got CCC type culverts. We've had the midweek crew. LaRoche has been involved, and we've had the crew out there, and we've cleaned all those culverts, and we've cut off the invasive pine trees, and we can drive people up there if we need to. There's a couple of flat places where dynamite used to be stored in tractor trailers, because people who owned it were in the dynamite business, and this was real remote, so nobody messed with the dynamite. So there's not any dynamite up there now, but it does leave some flat places, because there was a peach orchard too. So there are 2 landings which potentially the county could use in the future for some group camping, Boy Scouts, some opportunity for some other options. That's not funded by the county at this point, but it is an opportunity in the future. And yes, it has been my favorite project for the last 2 years. And
great.
There's a lot of history to the Hinchies and the Hanging Rock area, and we are planning some interpretive signs to show old pictures of the old roads and the shoe shop and the automotive shop and things like that. So this is a tremendous donation from somebody who's lived in Salem all their life. So the 50% that we bought was owned by the cousins who were in California and Texas, and they didn't want it. They just wanted to be bought out. So we bought them out, and we're left with a partner with the local landowner who is extremely generous and wants to see the land protected and
Sounds
preserved.
great. Sounds like a wonderful project, wouldn't you say, Pete? Perfect for mountain bike.
So if you're in Woods Rogers' office in the tower, you can now look out the mountain and see Tinker, McAfee's, and Carbons Cove, and then you see that long ridge dropping down to Hanging Rock, and that's it.
Awesome. Let me give the rest of the council an opportunity. I'm sorry, were you?
Thank you.
You guys have any comments or questions for Liz?
I'll just say that I had the opportunity to listen to this presentation on the Planning Commission, and I'm just as excited, or a little more excited tonight than I was 2 weeks ago when we heard it. So nothing's changed. I'm still on board, and I can't wait for it all to happen.
Sounds great. Bud, did you want to say anything this evening?
One thing I will say right off the bat is, someday in the not too distant future, you will be able to ride your bike from town of Benton to Carbons Cove by way of this trail and other trails and things like that. So, anyway, Mayor Gross and members of Town Council, my name, of course, is Bud LaRoche. Most of you know me, except me previously. And I'm the chair of the Roanoke Valley Greenway Commission, and I've been involved with the commission for 5+ years now as a citizen representative of the town of Benton in several different positions. I just want to take a minute to thank the town of Benton staff, the town council, and the citizen reps for all the great work that you've done for the last 21 years on the Greenway system in the valley. I think of us as a small town, but I think the folks that have worked from the town, the citizen reps and all, we've done a lot of good things for the town, and we're valley through the Greenway Commission, our representatives. So we're small, but we've done big things, I like to think. So anyway, I hope that we can count on the council's support in conclusion of the 2017 update to the Roanoke Valley Greenway Plan and to the town's comprehensive plan. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Bud. And I didn't mean to jump over what you were saying there, Mr. Vice Mayor, but I do appreciate your comments, because obviously the planning commission's already taken a look at this. And I guess, Bud, thank you for your comments. Liz, thank you so much for your service over the years. I know you've been with the Greenway Commission for quite a while. A lot of people work really hard. Another lady in this room, Anita's been involved with Greenway since, well, she got me involved in '96. I don't know when she started, so she's been doing this a while. And Bud, you're right. I think Benton's played a significant role in the development of the Greenway. You know, we were there from the first, and Wolf Creek, I guess if not the first, one of the first. I think there was something over in Roanoke County before the actual commission came along.
Right.
But the first commission project. So we got a great history with the Greenways. And I don't think convince anyone in this room. It's obviously a great quality of life project and an economic development project. But to me, it's really a great success story for this valley. I mean, it's been a few years, but not so many years ago, we didn't have any greenways at all. So it's been a great success, and I think it's been a shining example of what regionalism can accomplish. So it's the Greenway Commission and just the whole Greenway project means a lot to this valley, in my opinion. Thank you, folks, for all your hard work over the years. If there's nothing else, I guess we move on. Again, thank you, Liz. We appreciate it. Okay. And I understand you got some information for us about an award.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I would like to ask our staff, Brandon Can and Lydia Verdilla, to come stand with me as I present this honor to you tonight. They both worked very hard on this CAFR award, and I'm really glad to have them here with us. So in summary, the town of Benton has been notified that we received our CAFR award. That's our comprehensive annual financial report from GFOA for the 22nd year, and this is for the CAFR June 30th, 2017. This is a very prestigious award. It's the highest form of recognition in government accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. And that is actually the wording from GFOA, who awards this to us. The CAFR has been judged by an impartial panel and meets the high standards of the program, including demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate the town's financial story and to motivate potential users and user groups to read the CAFR, our financial report. I do want to thank everybody in this room. I know we couldn't do this without council, without our administration, our departments, and of course the hard work of all of our staff. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for allowing us to accomplish this.
Man, thank you and your team for doing such a great job. And I do have the official plaque I'll present to you. Gosh, I can't let this pass. I mention it every year. Before, Mike, you might be interested, before 2012, we got a nice plaque and everything every year. You know, as you mentioned, 21 years. But in keeping with the nature of our accountants, we now get a little sticker that goes on. But it's still meaningful and it's very, very important. So, Ann, thank you and your staff for all the great work you folks do. Again, thank you for your hard work and congratulations. And then we'll move on to the item that was added to the agenda. I understand Councilmember Scott has a presentation.
We have a proclamation of appreciation to Teresa Fontana, and I will read it. Whereas Teresa Fontana, town attorney, has announced that she will be leaving the firm of Gunn & Waddell effective August 31st, 2018, to work for Loudoun County, Virginia, as an assistant county attorney. And whereas Mrs. Fontana has worked with the town of Benton as legal counsel since 2011 and has given diligently of her time to the town, and whereas throughout her service, Ms. Fontana has worked closely with council and town staff on a wide variety of matters, including but not limited to local government and employment law, government procurement and contracts, economic development, real estate and zoning, to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the community and to protect the most appropriate use of the land. And whereas town council and staff would like to thank Ms. Fontana for her dedication and commitment to the town of Benton. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council and the citizens of the community do hereby extend gratitude and commendation to Teresa J. Fontana, town attorney, for her service to the town and the Benton community, and extend best wishes to her for many happy and successful years in the future.
Thank you.
Loudoun County, and I was talking to her today, and I told her she's getting a good one.
I'm prepared to get this one.
That's right. Yes.
I should have dressed up a little bit.
You want to come up here so we can get a picture with
I want to,
all
yeah.
council members?
Oh,
Come up here, you can stand in the middle of it.
Oh, good. A little more professional here.
Debbie, how do you want to do this? Just squish up. Squish up. You want to put behind the chairs?
Teresa.
Cherished possession. Can't get the tear. Hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's not right.
I miss you.
Bye. Good luck in the future.
Yes, you ought to tell me who your friend is.
I will.
I have to say hi.
Okay.
Teresa, congratulations on your new position, and we're happy for you, but we're sad to see you leave. And thank you for all the great work
Thank you
you've
so much. Thank you. This is awesome. Thank you.
Okay, next item is citizens' comments and petitions, and this is reserved for comments or questions that are not listed anywhere else on the agenda. Do we have anything tonight? And I don't see anything listed for the town attorney. Always a good sign.
It's been my sincere honor to serve as your town attorney, and I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Benton is a wonderful place,
Thank you.
represented by wonderful people.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Mr. Town Manager, to return just in time.
Okay, our first item on the briefings is a briefing on the briefing on assistance agreement between the city of Roanoke and the town of Benton. Tonight, we will be telling you about a assistant agreement between the city of Roanoke and the town of Benton. The town's public work department identified a need to ensure that it had backup equipment available to collect solid waste within the town in the case of a solid waste collection emergency, specifically not having an operable truck to collect refuse. So the town attorney and the public works staff and the city of Roanoke solid waste department, along with the city's attorney's office, work together to develop this assistance agreement. And so Basically, what has been developed is we will be able to rent a backup truck, a load packer from the city of Roanoke when it is deemed feasible due to our close proximity to the city of Roanoke. If they have a truck available and they have agreed for short-term usage of no more than 5 days at a time. And the main provisions of the agreement allows that the city would charge us a rental fee for a packer truck, and that they would require us to provide a certificate of insurance for the vehicle to ensure that we are properly insured. The city of Roanoke, at their July 16th meeting, has already approved this agreement by resolution, and so therefore tonight we are briefing council on this agreement, and we will be bringing it back to council at the September 4th meeting for approval and authorizing the town manager to sign the agreement. So does council have any questions? We did brief the Public Works Committee at our last meeting, and so we're open for any questions that you may have. So we did have to use this agreement with the city of Roanoke last week, even though it wasn't enforced. The city was very gracious to provide us a truck, and we were able to keep the truck for 2 days because our vehicle's radiator went out, and so the city, like I said, was very gracious in allowing us to borrow the truck. So.
Thank you. Council, I assume you've had an opportunity to look at the document that was in the packet this week. Are there any questions or comments? I'm sure you guys talked about it.
We did, and I think it's a great idea and it should work well for us.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly appreciate the city of Roanoke being willing to work with us on this. It's there again, a great sign of cooperation. Certainly nothing they have to do, but we appreciate them doing this for us.
I'll just make a comment on, I think it's a great agreement. Back when that happened a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and maybe in the future, if that happens, we put something out, like on social media or something like that. No big deal, but I got a few. Lisa lives in the Bush Farm neighborhood, and I probably got 10 calls, when are they picking up my trash? And then I got a call back at 6 o'clock and said they just did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I look on Facebook to try to find something, and it was.
Yeah, we discussed that, and the reason we didn't, because we, if it had have gone to the next day, we would have notified that, but we went on, and when we got the truck, we went on and picked up that route on that same day, because we were afraid that if we said we weren't coming, that we weren't sure exactly what time we were going to proceed with the route, so we were afraid we would create more confusion if we indicated that we were. So sometimes you cause confusion by putting it out on social media, and as well as eliminating confusion. So we did discuss that. So.
Oh, they were happy at 6 o'clock. I mean, I couldn't believe they were still out there picking up trash at 6:30.
Yeah, they made a special effort, and it
Yeah.
was greatly appreciated.
It was.
Thank you. Thank you guys for taking care of that, Joey.
Okay, we have no items requiring action tonight, but I do have a couple items. I do want to let council know that we have been working with Valley Metro on our bus reroute, and the GRTC board meeting will be September the 17th, which they will introduce the route that we had discussed with the reroute. Valley Metro brought a bus last week, and Mr. Peters and myself and Nathan McClung from the planning department actually rode the bus through town on the proposed new route, and we actually made some changes based off of riding the bus, so that was a nice experience there, and we looked at all the stops on the proposed route. We have given the date of September the 27th for an informational public meeting at the War Memorial for that to take public comments from the public, and that will be actually decided on by the GRTC, and they will have a joint meeting with us at the War Memorial.
But that is a firm date?
It will, we'll have that confirmation after the GRTC meeting.
I see.
On September the 17th. So we are moving on with the bus reroute. So.
Great. Thank you, sir.
And the last item, I'll turn over to Mr. Peters. He'll give you an update on the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mayor Gross, members of council, as you may recall, back in June, I briefed each of you individually on the idea of proposing a lease agreement with the Chamber of Commerce to provide office space at the Charles Hill Center. We provided a draft arrangement to their executive committee in late June. Revisited that lease agreement with the executive committee in July, and then presented a revised, edited lease agreement to the Chamber Board just within the last couple of weeks. We had set a tentative timeline for the Chamber to provide response back to the town by Labor Day, so that we could have sufficient time to develop the implementation plan, and any building modifications might need to be required at the Charles Hill Center to accommodate the Chamber. We have, as staff, presented this information that possible changes and new tenants would be incorporated into the senior building to all the user groups at the senior center. We'll now start meeting with them in the future to kind of give them more details as the lease agreement is fleshed out. So I just wanted to report that the Chamber, as of today, we received official notification the Chamber has accepted our lease offer. And at this point, we will begin negotiations on the fine tuning of that lease, and they'll bring it before council likely in September, early October for your authorization for final execution. A few pointers or a few points of emphasis on that lease that I want to bring to the attention and for public consumption is that the senior programs will be preserved. The existing programs that are in the facility will not be affected. And the Chamber, the town will also maintain the reservations for the facility on the evenings and weekends. And we will look for opportunities where the Chamber could utilize that space for programming activities of their own account, and also potentially revenue generation that they could gain from use of that space. So our initial meeting, we're gonna do a walkthrough with some public works staff, with the Chamber and the special program staff on August 29th, 8th or 9th, I believe, and do a punch list of items that we would want to begin working on and incorporate into the lease. So we're using the similar format of a lease agreement that was approved by our legal counsel, along the same lines that we have with the Advancement Foundation. So we'll provide that office space for them, and they will also share in the expense of the utilities on the space. So there will be some cost savings for the town. There will certainly be some cost savings, some benefits for the Chamber. So we feel like it's a good extension of our partnership with the Chamber to maintain that connection with supporting business and all the services the Chamber provides for the town.
Great.
So if you have any other questions, happy to answer, but I will be presenting more information information to the council, in coming council meetings.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions at this time? Of course, you're gonna have a detailed report later, is that right?
Yes, sir. We presented a draft lease agreement that had some particulars in it, but there's some information that needs to be fine-tuned on that before we bring it back to council.
So is it a yearly lease or
Yes, ma'am. Similar
be
to the,
reviewed each year?
yes, ma'am. Similar to the Advancement Foundation, the timeline is that the chamber would move into the space first of the year in 2019. And we would revisit this lease probably on a fiscal year basis, so we'll kind of get that on the same track as the Advancement Foundation lease, so we can consider those at both the same time. So there will be some adjustments. And we're gonna look for opportunities where the chamber can, over time, assume more responsibility of that facility. But as the lease is currently drafted, they just have use of some storage space in the building and the dedicated office space. So the main event hall for the senior programs and evening and weekend rentals will remain the responsibility of the town.
And just one more question, since it's, the senior building's kind of dead back there, and this will be like the second move for the chamber in a little bit of time, will there be any signs or anything that will kind of alert the public as to
Well,
where?
in addition to media releases and public service announcements about it, social media posts, we've actually already mocked up signage that would be located on one of the pedestals on the entrance of the War Memorial.
Oh, good.
Currently, it's not the marquee sign, but there's a pedestal, 2 brick columns on either side of the entrance. One of those contains the War Memorial. So we've mocked up one where we have a dedicated sign for the War Memorial and its address, and we have a separate one that actually listed the chamber and its address. And then on the building itself, Charlie Hill Senior Center information will stay on one side, and we're looking to incorporate a dedicated entrance up to the left of Charlie Hill Center into the offices for the chamber, so they'll have their own dedicated chamber sign on that side of the building. So hopefully, the intent is to differentiate between the 2 entrances.
Good. And thanks for sharing that the senior activities will stay, because I've gotten a lot of questions about that.
There has been some confusion on that, but hopefully, in the last couple of days, we've cleared up some of that confusion, and I will continue to meet with those senior user groups periodically over the next month or so, and provide this information as it becomes more refined.
Well, these were actually folks that I asked them how often did they attend the senior events, and they couldn't tell me, on one hand, how many times they had gone. So then I got to meet with Mary Beth also, and she said that everybody was being well received. So I think her being the buffer there is helping out as well as you.
Well, with any change, there's always, some apprehension, but, I feel like we've done, and there's multiple folks involved in this, I think we've done a really good job of protecting those programs and protecting that space for that good use. So, we'll flesh all the details out and do our best we can to communicate that information.
Well, as usual, job well done, Pete.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir, very much. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I understand that we have some council committee reports, starting with finance. Please, Amy.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of council. We had, have kind of a light report preview tonight. I will say that we are undergoing our annual audit right now. That's one reason why you don't see financial statements. We are making entries to July a little bit longer than we normally do due to the annual audit. So you will see financial statements on our next report. We did approve 2 sets of minutes at the most recent meeting for June and July, and then we also approved a volunteer first aid crew reimbursement request. And then the last item that we discussed was a closed session for contract negotiation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Council, any questions? Thanks. Thank you, Amy. I want to thank you for putting up with the crazy questions I asked in the Finance Committee meeting. I'm new to the committee and it shows. Thank you for that. Okay, Public Works Committee, Mr. Hunter.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. If it pleases, I'd like to give just a quick little summary of our most recent Public Works Committee meeting that took place on Thursday, August 2nd. Some of the items that we discussed at the meeting was the refuse ordinance update. Staff currently is using the current solid waste ordinance of Christiansburg as a framework for constructing and rebuilding the town's solid waste ordinance. Some of the issues that we're looking at are apartments, multi-unit buildings, and establishing a maximum number of cans for each of those, each unit. We want to try to reduce entering onto private property with our vehicles and personnel. Some of the areas that we have to pay special attention to are some of the alleys, some of our narrow streets, and the downtown area. We also want to look about what we want to do about restricting or putting a maximum on the number of cans per unit. We have, at that point, we had planned and we had made a visit to Bedford to take a look at their process of collecting refuse. We did make that visit, and it was an enlightening visit. We will report on that at the next Public Works Committee meeting, and sure enough, pass it along to y'all. As was mentioned earlier, we were working with Roanoke, or have been working with Roanoke, on an agreement for borrowing, essentially, one of their load packer trucks. And I do appreciate Teresa's work in bringing this all together. And, there's been quite a good amount of going back and forth between the town and Roanoke as far as getting this pounded out. And of course, the committee does recommend the approval of that at the next council meeting when that comes up. Well, we've been working on the stormwater annual report for the MS4, but before, which is coming up, but most of this past year we have been working through the audit comments from DEQ. The audit process is more in depth than the comments and review you get from an annual report, and we've gone back and forth with them, with DEQ on this, trying to satisfy their comments. As of July, I haven't received any more comments from DEQ, so I'm assuming that has been put to bed. Keep my fingers crossed on that. Our annual report is due October 1st. Hopefully with everything we've gotten from, or all the comments that we've gotten from the audit, we'll fold that in there. We're also gonna have a consultant to help us complete that, make sure we've got that just right. And hopefully the DEQ will be pleased by what we have out there, and if not, they usually let us know about that. Something new that we're working on is, and I say it's new, but it's kind of been out there for a while. It's a proposed ordinance for right-of-way mowing. Essentially, we want to codify the expectation that the right-of-way area adjacent to private property is to be maintained by the owner or resident of that property. This deals with the area of, well, it's a grassy area quite often that is between the property line and the edge of pavement. You can see this as the little grassy, I guess you would call it a median that's between the sidewalk and the road. And we're looking for this to take care of any of the vegetative growth. When you get some of the weeds that comes up in sidewalks or in front of houses and in the curbs and such. And it also applies to the alleys behind some of these properties. We're basing it on the Roanoke City ordinance, what they have, and some of the language they have, we definitely want to incorporate. And their language actually says that a property owner is to maintain halfway of the alley that is behind their property. And as I said before, this is kind of an expectation, and there's many localities that do have this as an ordinance, and we want to get that in there so that we, I guess we'll have that for code enforcement to take care of if there's any issues with that. Currently in town code is the snow removal ordinance that after snow falls, I think within 24 hours after snow falls, the sidewalk is to be cleared in front of folks' property. Body plays off of that so that they take care of the grassy area in there as well. That is the biggest part of what we did in the Public Works Committee meeting. Any questions?
Council, question, comments?
No question, no.
Joe, I have some questions about the right-of-way mowing. I'm not quite sure what it means to codify an expectation. It's either code or it's kind of a expectation that you're gonna behave, but they seem kind of not quite the same thing. So that's one area of concern, and I don't know, Ms. Fontana, if you have anything to say about that. I don't know how the city handles it. But I guess my question is, I mean, it makes a certain amount of logical sense to me in a neighborhood where you have sidewalks and people have property that goes, up to that sidewalk, and we're saying we expect you to not only take care of the sidewalk and clear it of any weeds that are coming up and clear it of snow, but we also expect you to mow the grass that's between the sidewalk and the pavement or the curb. But I think where it gets a little squirrely to me, and I think we need to be encouraging sidewalks, not discouraging them, is areas like along Harvey Road, from CBS, McGee's Place, and the stormwater ponds that we have. I mean, there's a big stretch of sidewalk there. Do we expect people to go out and plow that when it snows now? And are there any penalties if they don't? Have we ever enforced that ordinance?
Many, many years ago, as far as enforcement, I think there were, probably in the police department, we asked some folks to go and talk to some, and I think that was probably along Washington Avenue. So as far as enforcement, it may have been more of a reminder, hey, this is something that you're supposed to do, it is in the code. As far as any action being taken at that time, to my memory, no, it wasn't. And using the word expectation, that's my word there, because I think a lot of us would expect a property owner to want to look after their property, looking in
We're asking them to look after town property.
Right.
And we have, and I'm not against this idea, I'm just trying to kind of flesh it out, and maybe this isn't the appropriate time to do it, maybe Public Works Committee is. But, I mean, just to plant some ideas, I mean, I think we don't let people do a lot of things in our right of way. We tell them they can't do those things, they can't cut trees, or they can't, do X, Y, and Z, because it's not their property. But on the other hand, we're turning around and saying, we expect you to take care of that property for us. We expect you to clear it of snow, even though you don't own it, and we expect you to mow it, even though you don't own it. And I think I think we need to think about how we're going to implement that, and if we are in fact going to enforce it, because I've said this before when it comes to ordinances we have, to me, it doesn't make any sense to have an ordinance if we're not gonna enforce it. So, just some things to think about, and particularly kind of those areas where you have these long expanses of sidewalk, where there really aren't any houses along Hardy Road. Someday I'd love to see a sidewalk along the bypass, and you're gonna kind of run into the same problem there. You don't really have houses button up right to those sidewalks, and it's not really someone's front yard. It's vacant property, and somebody owns it, obviously, but it's vacant property, or it's the back sides of property, not the front sides.
And actually, we want to include something in the code that kind of addresses that, the areas that may be in front of vacant property or something like that. So we do want to put language in there that would help, the town and the property owner, that would probably be a suitable agreement on that. But yes, we actually definitely do want to put something like that in there. We do see that there are many other localities that do have this type of ordinance. And having the ordinance, whether we need to use it, having it there gives some backbone when one of our personnel goes up and just talks to the folks and says, here, we have this, this is what's here. And a lot of times that helps when you're talking to somebody saying that you do have it in the code, that it is part of the town law to do this. Quite often they'll carry on with that, you know. So that's kind of why I think of it as an expectation. But yes, I do think there's many points to discuss on this, and I think this will be a process, and we'll work through it and take comments and go with that.
Thank you, sir. You know, I guess part of that stretch along hard road, I can tell your house, Jared.
No, it's not anywhere near the farm. I have some.
We'll get LT out there.
It's gonna be Leon McGee's property, and the property that's next to that, that's vacant, that is just recently got mowed again. It gets mowed about once a month. And then the property on the other side of the stormwater detention ponds.
And there are some
Way up in the
areas,
woods.
there's some areas that we're conscious of that I think the town would prefer would have a little bit more attention than leaving it or something like that. That's why we do want to have language in there that kind of balances that.
Because some of us might expect that.
Well, you know, I mean, I guess my point is that that's a major corridor, entrance corridor into the town.
Exactly.
And, you know, I'm not opposed to requiring citizens to provide this service. But I just think it's.
So my question would be, what do other localities do if I don't do that? I mean, what is my expectation from the town if I don't do that? What
Jay.
Jail. Because it is my problem. It's not like I pay taxes for it.
Now, I believe it is rated in some places as a misdemeanor, and there are fines. There are
And that
fines.
stands up in a court of law, you know, it's not my property.
I think that would be a
know.
question to have with Roanoke City, to have that discussion with them, but, you know, what is their experience been?
Obviously, this could be a hot button item, so we'll have to work it.
It is. And
It's a lot to think about.
I will say, you know, this has kind of been on our minds for a couple of years, knowing that there's a lot of issues there, and we want to go ahead and press forward that. We know that this will bring up a lot of comments. But at least we wanted to start the process so we can go from there.
Mr. Stovall, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the general councilwoman here's got telepathic powers. She read exactly what I was going to say, so good job.
I'll let you go first next
Well,
time.
actually, you covered it.
Thank you, sir. Good report. Thank you very much. Just a few items under the mayor's section tonight. I'd like to recognize and honor a couple of folks that we've lost. One of them, Mr. Charles Wagner, was actually a member of Franklin County Board of Supervisors for 20 years. Just a real gentleman, and he served in a lot of capacities on the regional commission, and actually was a friend to the town of Benton. So he's someone I appreciate and someone we will miss. The other gentleman, Mr. David Willard, lived in Dillon Woods. And if you lived in Dillon Woods, you definitely knew David. He was an awesome guy. He was the kind of guy that you need if you're going to build a great neighborhood. He maintained the entrance to Dillon Woods for, I've heard it, for 35 years. I don't know, ever since it's been there. It seems he always cut the bushes around the sign and mowed the grass and stuff like that. So we will certainly all miss David. He was a great guy. And a few lighter notes. Chief, I certainly want to thank you and congratulate you on just an awesome national night out. I know you had a great team, and it was a wonderful night. So we certainly appreciate all the effort of went into making that night happen. Things like that don't just happen, so.
We had a lot of good partners with the state police that came out, and of course Journey Church that helped, and of course the band that was there, Eastern Divide, who came out and played for us for 2 hours and free of charge. And so it was a lot of good folks that came in and wanted to volunteer their time to make the night a success. So I was really happy with that.
Well, thank you for that night. It was an opportunity to see a lot of our citizens, as was the activity we had to honor Mr. Willard. And both of those activities, I got a lot of great comments about several departments, including Public Works and the Police Department. And if I can just comment on that just a minute, we tonight recognize a couple of departments, certainly our Finance Department, Police Department did a great job with National Night Out. And like I say, got recently a lot of really great comments about the Public Works Department. And so there's a lot of evidence that all of our departments are working hard and doing a great job. And just because I've mentioned a few, I certainly don't mean to slide in any of the others. I think we have a great team. And sometimes we do things as a town and as a department, and we really don't realize the positive impact that we're making at that particular time. Or perhaps we are not recognized for those activities. But and sometimes those things seem to go unnoticed. We've pointed out a few awards tonight, and that's great. But I'd like to mention two departments tonight in particular, and that's the Police Department and the Fire Department. Because usually when those guys show up at a citizen location, it's usually not to celebrate or have fun, unfortunately. But both of those departments, Chief Officer in the Police Department and Deputy Chief Linkus in the Fire Department, have been making a lot of efforts over the last few years to develop relationships in our community. And they're going out and having some direct contact and a lot of fun and fellowship with a lot of people. And they in particular have been making some efforts at some of the apartment complexes around town. One such effort that serves as a good example is the regular visits they make to Longwood Apartments over on A Street. And there is some evidence that they are having a positive impact with those citizens, and in particular with the children, and I think this will pay dividends down the road. As you know, this is the beginning of the school year. So elementary students, believe it or not, they still have fire drills. You guys remember that. And the younger ones, such as the kindergarten kids, they have to be taught how to react in those situations. So some teachers use this opportunity to explain how not only what's going to happen in the fire drill, but how the police department and the fire department react in the community and the jobs they do and everything. So recently, during some intense instructions from a certain kindergarten teacher, Herman L. Horn, she was right in the middle of explaining everything, and one of the young girls jumped up and said, "Yeah," and she literally jumped out of her seat. "Policemen and firemen are a lot of fun. They come and play with us all the time. This summer, they even brought their hose and sprayed everyone down." And of course, what she was talking about is an activity that was held at the Longwood Apartments, and the police department was there playing with the children, and the fire department had their hoses down and everything. So it was a lot of fun. So your efforts in the community are having a positive effect, and I just thought that was a good example of how sometimes things go unnoticed, but they are important. So thank you, sir. We want to thank Deputy Chief Linkus for all the efforts the fire department is making along with the lines. With that, I will finally shoulda, and turn it over to council. Mr. Vice Mayor, you have anything further this evening?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments. Yes, I enjoyed National Night Out too, and from what I understand, we probably host the very best one in our community around the Roanoke Valley. It was really interesting, the bomb squad, and all. We're lucky to have the chief, because all he has to do is pick up the phone, and he has all these resources that come from all over the state, and put on an excellent event, and the kids really enjoyed that. It was, they were climbing all over that equipment, and I was too, so I really, that robot was really neat that was there too. Well, in the police department, something happened the other day. I was heading over to Lisa's house, which is over past Mountain View Cemetery, and I was on Bypass Road, taking a left there in front of Bruce Mayor's office, and stopped at the stoplight. I saw a red truck coming down the road just like mine, and I was like, wow, this truck looks just like mine. And the exact time I saw that, the front wheel came off the truck, and the truck dove down into the pavement. The wheel came off, and it was going to hit my car, and fortunately there was a person at the stoplight in front of it, and it hit their car. Like he said, and went into Bruce Mayor's office, and I was making the turn, and so I was like, wow. And so I immediately took a right on Preston, went up the hill, took another right, and come down the hill. Literally, maybe took me 18 seconds, 20 seconds to do that, and I wasn't going fast. But by the time I got back down to that stoplight, the police officer was already there.
Wow.
And had the road blocked off, and the lady hadn't got out of the truck yet, and the police was already there. So that was awesome. And the last thing I hate that I missed Mr. Willard's celebration. My family had me a trip around the sun celebration that day, and so I was unable to make it. But I hear afterwards, I saw the plaque and everything, and I also hear that after it was over, the citizens got together and they got another guy at 407 Aragona that's going to take over.
I don't think so.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a national.
Oh, okay. That's what I heard. That's what I'm expecting.
Don't get excited.
Is that
I think that's my expectation.
Joey right here, you heard it.
Yeah. Send them up to your house.
I got plenty of wishes. I got too many as it is.
Oh, goodness. Maybe you have anything further? Can you talk to that?
I don't think I can. I do want to say how much I appreciate National Night Out, and from a little bit of a different perspective. I have a friend, I consider him a friend of mine, but he's a client. He's been a client of mine since we opened the bank, and he's 41 years old, but he is he's challenged, and his name's Noah, and he got to go with me, and he loves fire trucks and ambulances and police cars, and I mean, he was just in heaven. And for the policeman to stop and talk to him, and for the fire chief to go around the truck and explain everything, and he got inside the tank, and he got in, he got in the driver's seat of the police car. It was just amazing. So it not only, it was good for everybody, I guess is what I want to say. So thank you. You hit all ages. You made it fun. It was great. So I certainly appreciate it.
It's an honor to get to do it.
Thank you. Anything further?
Well, I would just say ditto in terms of National Night Out. It was a great evening. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate all the hard work and all the context to get all those resources. And I'm still waiting for the lip sync challenge.
Yeah.
I've tried, but our guys are they're awful
I
shy.
know, I talked to most of them that night and tried to prod them along.
They did it. They raised the Warm Award.
I have my fingers crossed, and I'm not giving up on it. And then, listen, the only other thing I want to say is, sometimes I think, we've talked about all the wonderful things that are going on here, and I certainly agree with the comment earlier this evening about the RBTV piece that was done. I mean, that was just a fabulous piece. There's so many good things going on. I think it's nice to remember that local government is really working. I think particularly today, maybe, at least in my mind, I get pretty discouraged about what's going on the federal level, national level, and sometimes even the state level. But it's happening. Good things are happening. Good people are working hard to make good
I've been to one, and it was great. It was nice just to see all the people and talk to people. I mean, get out and start talking to people, and that's you. That's all you. I mean, that's, regardless of what they say, you know, President Roosevelt said, well, it comes around public service and leadership. And that's your leadership, and it's all something that you can take credit for, because you lead those people actually where they need to be able to do that, and do it with enthusiasm. And I agree with you as far as local government is concerned. As a lot of you know, I served on the school board for a number of years, but taking over here as a council member and then seeing your great work, and the works of the departments in this town, and people asking a lot of questions actually that I can't answer because we'll have it unveiled yet. But just to see folks, I mean, the hard work behind the scenes, and I know, you know, we say to y'all all the time, thank you, but the citizens of the town really need, especially the business owners of the town. I mean, to be able, if you look at the things that are going on, and to be able to capture those thousands of people that are going through this town and give them some reason not to go to Roanoke City, not to go to Roanoke County. So anyway, so to echo, and once again, that's kind of what I was going to touch on. Here you go, here. So, but anyway, y'all are, it's great. I'm proud to be here, proud to be on the team. And I realized I get paid for this. Like, I had that. You're not going to get rich. I'm going to get rich. Thank you.
Can I comment on that real quick? You know,
The pay part.
on National Night Out, I had a citizen come up to me, and we all know this person, and he said, I really wish he wouldn't have got elected.
Right.
And I said, why? And he's doing a great job. I said, because he quit his job. And I said, well, he resigned his job at Roanoke County. And I said, well, it wasn't because what he got paid at the time.
Oh, my goodness. Our good friend Chris Kraft.
Yes.
Shout out to Chris Kraft.
Yeah. It's all over Facebook.
Thank you all for your comments about that. There really is. We got a great team down there, and I'm blessed to have friends that I can pick up the phone and call, and they jump in and help out. And it was it's an honor to put it together, and we're trying to make it a little bigger every year. You know, I was talking with them, and I said, I hope soon we'll fill up that whole parking lot with stuff for people to do. But thank you for all your comments, and I'll share it with all the members of the police department. Thank you.
I have one more thing too, it's a good thing. We went out to eat dinner, the other night, and we sat at Kabuki, and you get to sit with all different people when you go to Kabuki. And of course, Chris and I were talking to the guys that were sitting right beside us. There was a young couple, and we found out that they just moved into the area. And Chris immediately invited them to the event on Saturday night, and the guy put it in his phone, so I'm going to be looking for him. But they are renting, and I said, can I ask you, can I make a request? And he said, yeah. And I said, would you consider looking in Benton when you get ready to buy? I said, just look. If you don't like it, that's okay. He said, oh no, it's at the top of our list.
Wow.
So I'm finding it so great. Yeah.
That's good to
I
hear.
hope to see him on Saturday, and if anybody's down there and I see him, I'm gonna introduce him to y'all.
All right. Always good to hear that. Thank you for that. All right, we do have one other piece of business before we go to closed session, and that's appointment to the Roanoke Valley Regional Cable TV Committee. It's my understanding that Mary Beth Wayman has agreed to be reappointed. I think I'm correct about that, right?
She will be retiring in January, but she has agreed to take this term up until her retirement, and that will give us a chance to find someone to go on to the RTV board. So if y'all were in agreement to appoint her through the end of the year, then we can find someone that can go on that.
Okay, well, that's very gracious of her. We appreciate that. As our council member, would like to make a motion to appoint Mary Beth Wayman as as our representative for the RVTV.
Motion?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. So do we have to call roll on that? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we will move to our closed session. And, as you can see, this is a request to convene in closed session according to 1950 Code of Virginia. This is for consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff members. This cannot be done in public as it would adversely affect the negotiations or the position that we must take in this issue. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Everybody want to come back out, right? Thank you, folks. Certainly appreciate you being here tonight.